Hello, everybody. Welcome to Every Day is Saturday. I'm Matt Stahl, along with my partner, Brad Gatto.
Hello, Matt Stahl.
Hello. Howdy. Howdy, Brad. Today, I'm very excited because we're going to unveil, looking for a sound effect. We're going to unveil, there we go, a new concept Brad has coined, and I'm really excited about it. Before we jump into that, Brad, what have you been up to?
I hope you're really excited because I'm really excited.
I know you are.
Normally, you say you're excited for every one of our episodes. So I hope you actually mean it this time.
Actually,
because the concept that we're going to get into, when I kind of had my epiphany and I shared it with the first person, my disclaimer that I gave them was, I hope you love this, because if you tell me this is terrible, I'm probably going to go over the corner and curl up in a ball and cry because I think this is really good. So I'm excited as well. But to answer your question, what have I been up to? Well, it's fall here, fall-ish in Minnesota.
Fall-ish? What else would you call it?
Well, it's going to snow here soon.
Yeah, it's still fall.
Well, I don't know. I don't associate snow with fall.
Okay.
Do you?
No, but we're still in the thick of fall.
So like I said, ish.
50-some degrees out there.
And the trees are beautiful.
Yeah.
You know where they're more beautiful?
Where?
The Smoky Mountains.
Yes.
And I got to go. I have a friend/mentor that lives out in the Smoky Mountains, west side of North Carolina. And so just for a long weekend, family went out, stayed with him, got to hang out because he's kind of a business mentor of mine, got to talk shop and, have some really good just friend conversations, but also really good kind of mentoring type conversations.
Nice.
We were in the Smokies at like peak color time. And so it was absolutely gorgeous.
Sounds amazing.
It was awesome. How about you? Top that.
Top that. I'm going to top that. So,
well, I'll be the judge of that.
You know where else is beautiful? Galena, Illinois. No, I got this. So I had a really
California.
I got to had the opportunity to.
I'm going to derail us here with Dumb and Dumber quotes.
Experience a really unique milestones. My parents are celebrating their 50th wedding anniversary.
Okay, fair. You win.
Yeah. So I do win. I mean, that's a big one. So,
50 is awesome.
It is awesome. So it's technically next year in May. They'll be celebrating their 50th wedding anniversary. We decided to plan a trip a little early when we could all get together.
That's a little preemptive, don't you think?
No, not even close. 6 months. Who knows what we're going to be doing in May next year? So, who knows if I'll even be around,
Well, that's my point.
So, no, it happened to be a weekend that worked for all of us. We have some experience or some history with that area in our family. So it was kind of a fun place to reunite with my sister and her crew and my parents and our family.
Well, 50 years in anything in life is an amazing feat.
It's kind of mind-boggling. Yeah, it's kind of blows my mind.
Let alone marriage. I mean, marriage is tough. It's one of the, I always tell people that the most rewarding things in life are the hardest things. That I think that dichotomy is always true. Marriage can be extremely tough, but man, is it rewarding. And 50 years is, I love getting to talk to people that have been married that long and try to gain some wisdom.
Talk about taking us on a sidetrack. I want to share.
I have no idea where this is going. It's not in the notes, whatever comes next.
I want to share a quote that a mentor of mine shared with me recently. I think it's Diane Sawyer, but
Diane Sawyer is a mentor of yours?
No, the quote is from Diane Sawyer. The mentor shared it with me, and it was, "Marriage is a contest in generosity." And I thought that was kind of cool.
I like that.
Interesting thought process.
Thanks for listening to this episode of Every Day is Saturday. I think we just leave it there.
Yeah. Mom and Dad, I know you're listening. Congrats. I don't know if anyone else is.
That's awesome.
So without further ado, let's unveil this new concept. So I want to set the stage a little bit here. So I had a conversation with Brad. We traditionally, most of us, I'm sure, are familiar with the term net worth, and that's just assets minus liabilities. Obviously, that's a big piece of what we talk about in financial planning, because that's what a lot of thinking about retirement is based on. But Brad, I want you to share what is this new concept when it has to do with net worth, and explain that to us.
Yeah. So just going a little bit more into detail about net worth, because I just don't want to be presumptive, like assets minus liabilities. Just to be very clear, net worth is a financial calculation that most people, to your point, are familiar with, at least in concept, but it's also used in our industry all the time.
Right.
And to the point where like all the major financial planning softwares, like kind of the big boys in the space that advisors like you and I use. It's one of the primary indicators of how things are going. It's like a really good litmus test of like, is this working? Is my planning working? Is my net worth growing? And people like to watch their net worth over time, which again, assets minus their liabilities, assets just being any physical asset you have like your house, or investable asset you have like farmland or a stock, minus any debt that you have, which would be a mortgage on that house or auto loans or student loans or whatever it may be. And so if you have a $500,000 house and $500,000 of investments, you have $1 million of assets. If your house has a $300,000 mortgage, you have $300,000 of liabilities, you would have a $700,000 net worth. I bring all that up because it's used again as a barometer for success or failure a lot of times. And it's also used in calculations to determine for people if they can retire or, how much money it takes to retire. Net worth is kind of a big indicator for that as well. So with that being said, it's just funny how some things just kind of hit you sometimes. This isn't new as far as like I didn't know this before. It just kind of hit me as like the fact that most people don't calculate net worth correctly.
Yeah, it's a perspective thing, right?
Right. And so the traditional sense of net worth, and again, if you're unfamiliar, we work primarily with people on the way down the mountain, which is just people nearing or in retirement. That's kind of our niche or our specialty. And for those people, I would argue that that is not the healthiest way that you should be calculating net worth. And so the term or phrase that we've coined or are going to try to coin is real net worth, REAL, your real net worth, meaning your true assets minus your true liabilities.
Okay. So I'm coming to you. I've had a successful career. I've been a hard worker. I've saved a lot of money. Let's say I have $5 million put away.
Okay.
Okay. So I have $4 million socked away in my IRA.
IRAs and 401ks, pre-tax accounts.
Yep. Let's say I have $750,000 in just a brokerage account.
Yep.
So no retirement account. And then I have $250,000 in some Roth IRAs.
You're doing pretty well, by the way.
And my house is worth $1 million. So I'm worth $6 million because I have no debt.
So
you're
you're
with me or not?
In a traditional definition of net worth, you do have a $6 million net worth.
Okay.
I would argue that your real net worth is about $1 million less than that.
Okay. Explain that to me.
So you have the assets that you've saved are primarily in a pre-tax account. You've got a $4 million pre-tax bucket of money, 401ks, IRAs, 457 plans, 403bs, TSPs, anything that you've not yet paid a tax bill on. And you've got another $750,000 in a brokerage account. Now, one of the things that you didn't get into that I would need to know to get a more accurate, I'm making general statements here,
yep.
Right? I'm not. So it does kind of this real net worth calculation. We can make some general statements on, but to really figure out the actual number, you'd have to get into some pretty detailed tax planning with your advisor. But I'm just going to use general statements. Okay. So on the $4 million, you have a debt that you're not factoring in, and that the traditional definition of net worth doesn't factor in. And that is you've never paid taxes on any of that money. So if you have $4 million in your IRAs and 401ks, you don't have $4 million. That's not all of your money, which this is the funny thing about the traditional definition of net worth is it's like, yeah, you have $1 million home, but if you have a $300,000 mortgage, they go, no, you don't have $1 million net worth. You only have $700,000 because you owe somebody else a bunch of that money. Right. So technically your worth is net of your liabilities, net worth. Well, if you have $1 million in an IRA, that's all money you have yet to pay taxes on. So the debt that you have, or the mortgage, to use my example, that you have is to the IRS. You owe the IRS taxes on all of that money. And the amount that you owe is, of course, going to be specific and determined to your overall situation because everybody's tax liabilities look a little bit different. But let's just say hypothetically, for our case today, that the effective tax rate you're going to have to pay on the way out is 20%. Now, okay. That could be 20% just Fed, or that could be 20% combined Fed and state, depending on the state that you live in. But again, just for simplicity, for now, let's just say it's 20%. Well, what's 20% of 4 million?
It's a lot of money.
It's $800,000.
Yeah.
You have an $800,000 debt on that money. Now, if you saw your statement, Matt, if you had a $4 million IRA and one day it was $4 million and the next day you looked at your account and it was $3.2 million, would you be concerned, or would that cause some bells and whistles to go off for you?
Yep.
If 800 grand just disappeared?
Yes.
So one of the problems we have is that we look at our accounts on a gross basis, not a net basis, when we're looking at our pre-tax accounts, because that's not all your money.
Yep.
Yet the traditional definition of net worth doesn't factor in the IRS debt or mortgage to the IRS that we have. That middle bucket of money you discussed, the $750,000 in a brokerage account. And again, we didn't get into a lot of detail on this. I don't know what your cost basis of that 750 is. In other words, I don't know what you invested initially to get to the 750. Maybe it was 100 grand and it grew to 750 because maybe you're an investing rock star. Maybe it was 300 grand and it grew to 750. But it's the growth of the money that you still have a tax liability on. And so let's just say it's, for ease of math, okay, you got 750. Let's just say you invested 350. You have $400,000 of growth. That 400 grand still has to get taxed. Most people, not everybody, most people pay a capital gains rate of 15%. So 15% of that $400,000 of growth is going to be another $60,000 of taxes. So now we're getting close to about a $900,000 debt that we do owe. And just like any other debt you have, auto debt, mortgage debt, credit card debt, that stuff doesn't go away unless you pay it off.
Yep.
And it doesn't even go away if you die. Then your estate has to pay it off, whoever you gave your estate to. And the IRS is the exact same. And so one of the issues that we run into when we meet people is we start calculating their real net worth, and it changes their perspective on well, gosh, I've always in my head thought I have more money than this. And of course, it changes their comfort level with some of their overall financial goals and things like that. But even on top of that, Matt, and this is where it gets really too much for a podcast episode, but your debt to the IRS isn't like a fixed rate mortgage to your bank. It's an adjustable rate mortgage because the actual amount you pay. My example, I just used a 20% effective rate to the Fed on your IRAs and 401ks and 15% on your capital gains. But your actual rate that you pay is going to be different for almost every dollar that you pull out, and different year over year, and could just be different, not because your situation changed, but because Congress changed the rules to the game.
Right.
Because they change tax rates from time to time.
So it's an adjustable rate mortgage with a lot of unpredictable factors and not pegged to anything specifically.
But another great point, because if you actually did have an adjustable rate mortgage, which I've had one in my life, you're normally, when you get an adjustable rate mortgage through a bank, it's, some sort of pegged rate, like the LIBOR index plus 1% or something. And so it's just LIBOR plus this or some other index plus this. Whereas with Congress, it's not pegged to anything. Congress can kind of change rates however they see fit. Now, they have to pass laws to get this stuff done. But at the end of the day, there is no capped upside on what that bill could look like. So not only that, but even you add in other complexities of the amount of debt you owe, the percentage of debt you owe could also just be as simple as changing your marital status. If you get divorced, your debt could get more expensive.
Yep.
If your spouse passes away, your debt could get more expensive. There's just a lot of factors that can go into how that rate adjusts over time.
One more thing we talked about, and I want to play devil's advocate. And I'm having a hard time doing so because we had this conversation ahead of time. So, I'm in agreement on all this stuff. The other piece of this is the compounding effect that exists. And oftentimes we talk about all the different moving parts specifically when it comes to just distribution planning and retirement. And every decision that we make, whether we do a Roth conversion or whether we decide to pull out X amount from a certain type of account, can have this cascading effect on other parts of our financial picture as well. So in addition to all that is also this compounding effect of how would this affect our Social Security? How much of that would be taxed?
Yeah.
How's this going to affect our Medicare? How would this affect the capital gains rate that we'd be in? So that just adds an additional another layer of uncertainty on top of there that just, I would say, adds even more to the adjustable rate mortgage. It's very, very unpredictable.
Well, you bring up a good point, because it's one of the primary reasons that a lot of people put money away on a pre-tax basis, because all we were paying attention to and all you were taught to pay attention to is, well, I'm in the 24% tax bracket right now in my working years. I'm not going to be in that high of a tax bracket when I retire. It's going to be 22 or it's going to be 12 or whatever. So I'm going to put all that money in a 401k, not pay the bill now. I'll wait to pay it later when my marginal tax bracket is less than it is today. And in your working years, typically that math jives. But then you get to retirement, and you brought up some good points in the fact that $1 of distribution out of your IRA at a 12% tax rate or a 22% tax rate can cause that bill of 12 or 22%. But that distribution from that IRA, to use your language of cascading, can also cause additional taxes on your Social Security, which can also cause additional taxes on any non-qualified money or brokerage account money that came into your life, which can also actually have an effect on your Medicare premiums. And so for all intents and purposes, it's not nearly as important to pay attention to your marginal tax brackets to figure out how much you actually have to pay the government on that dollar. It's about figuring out your effective tax rate. So in my example, which is the extreme example, but can happen and true, that $1 distribution can have 4 different tax effects, where I can be in a 12% marginal tax bracket and it costs me, if I pull that dollar out, it could cost me 50 cents, which means I actually paid 50% in taxes. And so it's really important to pay attention to. And one of the biggest reasons that we do a ton of planning around this is you really need to understand the true tax impact of your distributions, not just look at your marginal tax brackets and try to pay attention to that, which is why you should care what your real net worth is.
Yep.
So the first step is just figuring out what is the debt you have to the IRS. How much do you roughly owe them? Just using rounded off numbers. And then figure out, is there a cheaper way to pay them off? Can I get that adjustable rate to actually move in my favor? And so for the same reason, you might prepay a mortgage in your working years to try to save a bunch of interest on the back end of the debt. You might want to start prepaying the IRS to do the exact same thing. Or maybe it's not even a prepayment. It's just an issue of, I'm not going to pull a dollar out of bucket A to live off of. I'm going to pull it out of bucket B, which may just have a different tax impact in my overall situation. So calculating real net worth matters to the overall success or failure to a financial plan, because one of the largest expenses you have in retirement is the IRS. And so just like any other major expense you have in life, you're trying to be efficient with that expense and get it done in not always the cheapest way possible, because sometimes in life, it's not about cheap, right? We want value. But with the IRS, that is kind of what it is. I don't want to overpay you. I don't want to tip you every year and pay you more than I have to. So one of the things I would encourage everybody to do is to stop calculating your net worth without factoring in the debt you have to the IRS. I just met with a couple yesterday, as an example, that is entering retirement in a similar situation to what you described. They did really well. They've saved really well. The collective retiree these days is about 80% pre-tax, 15% after tax, and about 5% tax-free as far as where they saved their money. And they were self-described as, we are debt-free. I have no debt. And what they meant by that was, I have no mortgage, I have no car payments, I have no credit card debt, kind of the typical stuff. And I had this conversation. Well, actually, your real net worth tells me you do have debt. And we kind of walked through this conversation. And it was a bit of a mind-blowing experience. Now, luckily, this family has saved well enough that even though they have hundreds of thousands of dollars, actually, in their case, it was a 7-figure number of debt that they didn't really realize that they had, they're still going to be okay. But that's not true for everybody.
Right.
And so it's really important to understand the actual amount of money you have minus your liabilities, which does include the IRS. And so one of the things we do here at Fiat on a complimentary basis is help people calculate their real net worth and give them that education, so that empowered with that education, hopefully you can make better decisions for yourself in retirement.
Awesome. I think it's something we take for granted because we see this side of it so often, and just assume that everyone else also sees it. So we've been thought partners on a lot of things. So I'm not just saying this because of that, but I love it because it's very simple. It distills that and helps people to reframe that and think of it in a different way. So you've already teased this a little bit, but this new concept, what can we expect? Like, where are we going to see this?
In all of our planning. It's something we've been doing to this point anyway. That was kind of my point of like, it's not that we haven't already been having these conversations. It's just never really dawned on me until now that the biggest disconnect for people is this idea that their net worth is assets minus liabilities, and nobody's ever factored the IRS into that equation. And so as an example, Matt, of how that plays out is we'll start working with a family. We do all this tax planning and, overall cash flow planning, insurance planning, investment planning, all the comprehensive financial things that we do for the families that we work with. And we'll have this conversation. We'll talk to them about this debt. We take action to start paying off the debt, like sometimes aggressively, where we'll chunk significant amounts of money at the debt to get rid of it, i.e. pay the tax bill. And so we get to the end of the year and we write these massive checks to the IRS to try to pay them off. And then they look at their overall traditional net worth and they go, hey, the market was up last year and my net worth didn't go up. So what are you doing? Well, are you not managing my money well? Should we be invested differently? Do I need to change my allocation? And we have to constantly remind them that your net worth isn't calculating it correctly. You did make money in your investments, but it was offset by the fact that we paid off a bunch of debt to the IRS. And so the part of this that finally dawned on me is the disconnect is their definition of net worth and my definition of net worth are different. And your real net worth did go up if we factor in the true debt that you have to the IRS.
Love it. You heard it here. Ask what your real net worth is.
It is important. What you do with that information, whether you choose to partner with Fiat to plan after that or not, it's just an exercise that I think everybody should go through so that you fully understand the assets you actually have available to you to use to fund whatever lifestyle it is that you want to fund. And that could be on your dreams and goals. That could be on to charity, like to give to charity. That could be on giving it to the next generation, which not to get this, I'm going to open a whole other can of worms here that we're not going to unpack at all. Now, I feel like a guy on the news that just brings up this big problem and goes, well, we're just going to have to leave it there. But whether you choose to spend it on your fun and lifestyle, you choose to give it to the next generation, or you choose to actually give it to charity, affects your real net worth because it affects the bill. So it's not only adjustable to what Congress does, and when you pull it, it's adjustable, the debt, to who you give it to.
Right.
Oh boy. So we're going to leave that there.
Let's put a pin in that one.
Yeah, we're going to put a pin in it. The bottom line is you should know. And that's going to help you make better and more educated decisions. And if I could be so bold, better and more educated decisions are going to allow you to sleep at night and get rid of a lot of the fear and anxiety that go with change in life. That change being, I don't have an income coming in the door anymore, and I don't really understand how this is going to play out for the rest of my life, and I can't get comfortable with the idea of spending my money in a meaningful way. So long story short, it's going to bring a lot of clarity. Clarity always brings about better outcomes, in my opinion. So I'm very passionate about this, if you can't tell, but I think it's really, really important. And as an educator, primarily, I think my number one job here at Fiat is to be an educator. It's just exciting to me to try to bring clarity in an area where fear can be a leading cause of decision making.
Well said.
Are we going to leave it there?
We're going to leave it there. Stay tuned.
Awesome. Well, welcome.
Ask someone what your real net worth is.
You should. REAL, real net worth. Something we can do for you here at Fiat. And if you want us to do it for you, let us know. You can get a hold of us. The easiest way to get a hold of us is on our website. It's fiatwm.com, FIATWM.com. All of our contact information is there. All the advisors' contact information is there, as well as a bunch more education. We've said this multiple times in this episode, and we say it almost every episode, but it's worth repeating. Education is one of the most powerful things, or one of the most powerful tools you can have in life. Being a lifelong learner, we believe in here at Fiat. We just want to help facilitate that learning. And so all over our website, you're going to find opportunities to educate yourself on all things financial and comprehensive planning. And so please use our website as a resource. If you have not yet subscribed to this podcast, this is a resource for you, and it's free. So go ahead and subscribe, share it with all of your best friends and your loved ones, and we'll see you on the next episode of Every Day is Saturday. So we will see all of you next Saturday. Bye, everybody.
Thank you for listening to Every Day is Saturday. Click the subscribe button below to be notified when new episodes become available. The information covered and posted represents the views and opinions of the guest and does not necessarily represent the views or opinions of Fiat Wealth Management. The content has been made available for informational and educational purposes only. The content is not intended to be a substitute for professional investing advice. Always seek the advice of your financial advisor or other qualified financial service provider with any questions you may have regarding your investment planning.